Hello guys. Okay, so today we are going to be doing a back to basics kind of video. I'm going to show you how to get a classic soft glam eye. That's what we're doing. Just a very simple, easy, straight up tutorial on how to get a lifted, soft glam, pretty eye look that is universally flattering for everyone, in my opinion. And yeah, we're focusing on placement today. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And I might get a little bit of a TED Talk again, as per usual, because that's just how I am. But we're just going to talk about eyeshadow placement. I'm going to show you what brushes I like to use to accomplish this, and we're not going to talk about product. This is going to be just about the placement, and this is a look you can use any color story that you want to use. This placement will work for it, and yeah. That's what we're doing today. Very much just old school back to basics tutorial. Let me know down below if there's any more videos like this that you want to see that's like a back to basics on anything. I have a couple on playlist over here if you are interested in that. But, eyebrows. Back to basics on how to fill in your brows. We have one on winged liner over here already. Halo eye. I have some on contour, complexion, all of that over here. You let me know what back to basic type videos you want to see down below. And yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this look. Alright, hello guys. So today I thought we could do a back to basics kind of video and show you how to create a nice eye look. Kind of somewhere, let's call it a soft glam. Somewhere in between smoky and daytime friendly, just that middle ground, elegant, soft glam eye. That's what we're doing today. First thing is we're going to prime the eyes. Now, I like to use two different methods to prime my eyes, depending on what I'm doing. The tried and true go-to is just a regular old eye primer, something like the Urban Decay Primer Potion, Milani eye primer is a 10 out of 10. NYX makes a good one. I think e.l.f. has one as well. Pretty much every brand has an eyeshadow primer at this point, but you can't go wrong with something like good old Primer Potion and the Milani eye primer. Those are very trustworthy ones, and less is more when it comes to these. Or you can go with something like a long wear crayon. You can get these in like a more of a skin tone color or a specific color that maybe goes with the eyeshadows you're leaning into. Like some days I like to take this one, which is like kind of champagne shimmer, and go over top of it with some mattes, and it can look really pretty and elegant. So that's something I like to do. Or just kind of a skin tone shade. Eye crayon is really nice. Sigma makes really good eye base crayons that are made to be like a primer. They're very similar to like MAC Painterly Paint Pot, or the MAC Paint Pots, and they have a shade that's like Painterly rather, but it's a very similar formulation to that, but in a stick, so it's a little bit easier to use. But we're gonna go with good old Primer Potion today. It's something that's gonna be the most universal type of product. So just a little bit. You don't need a ton, because if you over apply, you will get creasing and it'll work against you. But we're applying primer to prevent creasing, and so we get the most color payoff and long wear out of our products. So I start out with a little bit of that just on the lid, and I have hooded eyes, obviously. Mostly hooded through age. They used to not be hooded, they used to look like that, and I am now a 38-year-old woman whose eyes have dropped a little. They're a little downturned, a little sad looking, and I like to give them lift and give myself a little eye lift, because I do have just droopy eyes. I've always had kind of downturned, droopy eyes, so, and it's just one of those things. It's one of those little things that, like, you know, everybody has something that they like to tweak and change about themselves and play up in a different way. That's one of the things that is for me, is I like to give myself an eye lift. It doesn't mean you dislike yourself or anything like that, or hate a body part. It's just something you enjoy doing and a way you prefer something to look. It doesn't have to be anything deeper than that. So let's get that out the way, because I know that's always a thing that people want to throw out there. Like, I see it in like comments, not my comments, but comments in general, is that like, oh, you have to change your whole face, or you're doing this because you hate yourself. It's not that. it's more of a joy and just a fun of transformation, really. And it's not that I dislike my eye shape. That being said, they were a sore spot for me as a child. I was very much made fun of because I have paralysis in both my eyelids, particularly worse in the other one. Just birth defect kind of thing. And so I always looked very sleepy. And as an adult, I got accused of being stoned a lot. Not the case. I just have very heavy lids. And I don't have a lot of muscle control in them. I can't open my eyes super wide. So anyway, it's changed from being something that I disliked about myself to being just who I am and embracing my face and coming to love my eye shape and playing with my eye shape and, you know, giving myself that little eye lift and stuff. It's just more of a fun thing, so, and not so much a because I just like the way my eyes look. Like, I don't always do eye shapes that are lifted. I do very rounded looks sometimes that are not going to necessarily give me a big eye lift or anything like that. It's just more a technique that I think is flattering on universally, is the kind of lifted, darker in the outer corner, classic placement. That's just kind of a makeup thing. And I enjoy painting and playing with eyeshadow and sculpting and changing and creating that illusion and changing the way things look. It's not anything really much deeper than that. It's changed the way that I feel about my eyes to where they were something that I was very self-conscious about and hated about myself as a, you know, younger person, to become something that I really love and have fun with and play. And I appreciate that I have a lot of lid space that I can play with and can create some fun looks. So yeah, it's weird how that has changed, because that was probably what got me into playing with eyeshadow initially, was coming from a place of trying to hide. And it's ended up transforming it into something that's a source of light for me, where I'm like, no, this is how God made me, and I love it, and I'm proud of that because I'm made in His image. So I'm not trying to change myself in a way of coming from a place of sadness. It's more, I'm just playing, being creative, having fun with makeup at this point. And it's just been kind of a 180 type of approach that I have with makeup now. And it's more about embracing my natural face, my eyes, and finding that beauty in what would be considered a flaw. And yeah, playing with eyeshadow, creating shapes and illusions, it's just good fun. It's not anything really necessarily deeper than that. But the point there being is, playing with eyeshadow doesn't, and kind of tweaking your eye shape doesn't mean you want to change who you are or change yourself. It's just, it really isn't that deep sometimes. It's just for funsies. And to me, it's playing up the natural beauty that's there. I'm not trying to change what I look like. And when I've done makeup on other people, that's never been the goal either, to change them. It's to enhance their beauty, to bring forth the beauty that I see inside them. I have a few brushes that I very much enjoy, mostly from Sigma. All my favorite eye brushes are always listed down below. Sony Kashuk, Sigma. Actually, Morphe has some brushes that I very much enjoy just because of their shape. Profusion makes wonderful brushes. Eco Tools, another great brushes there. Real Techniques. There's so many affordable brush options. You don't have to break the bank on brushes. Today we're going to be probably just reaching for a few from Sigma and Morphe, just because that's just what I have clean on hand. So that's what we're using. And I'll talk a little bit about why I'm choosing that shape and style when we get to that point. For the eye look today, I'm keeping it very neutral. We're not going to actually talk about the brand of eyeshadow or the products. It's just going to be color inspiration, and I'm sourcing shades that you could find in a multitude of palettes. We're keeping very neutral, just classic look, and it's nothing unique shade-wise that you probably don't already have in your collection. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to have these shades within their collection in some form or capacity. And it's also going to be placement in a look that you could do with any color story. It doesn't matter. So let's get to it. I am, now that I've got my eyes primed, sometimes I feel like I have a lot of redness on my lids, and I like to kind of even that out. So something I will do, especially if my eye primer is like the primer potion, it doesn't offer a lot of color cancellation. which can be a bit of a downside. And I have very freckly lids as well, which can sometimes make things look unblended. So for me personally, something that I do like to do that you don't have to do, just depends on your needs, is I take a little tiny bit of concealer on my lids just to even them out. This is going to be just if you need to do it kind of thing. But why I like to do it is because it's not so much the redness coming through or anything, it's the freckles. Because it can look like splotches of eyeshadow. It can look unblended, or it can look like mascara or something. It can look kind of weird occasionally. And I've had those freckles on my lids. I've tried putting vitamin C on them, dark spot corrector, whatever. They're there. So I'd like to take a little concealer, just a small amount, over top of that eye primer. And just tap that on. Just tiny bit, just enough to even things out. And I'm just going to buff that out. And for today, I'm using the NYX Pro Fix stick. Whatever concealer it is that you use on your under eyes will do fine if you need to do this step. You don't have to. And there are primers out there that can offer color correction and blank out the lids. I just don't happen to have one on hand. But there we go. See how it just kind of tones things down and creates a nice little canvas. And yeah, it's not too tacky. But another little trick that I like to do is take a little tiny bit of a translucent powder over top of that, just to not only set that down a little bit to prevent creasing, because I tend to have a lot of creasing because I have very hooded, oily eyelids. They're oily also. Creasing can be a little bit of a thing for me. So I like to take a little tiny bit of translucent powder just through the crease and up to the brow bone. And it sets that down. And what this will also do is aid in blending. And I'm using a very small amount, like very light amount. But this will help you blend as well if you struggle with blending. This is going to create a very velvety, soft surface that your eyeshadow is just going to flow so beautifully over top. It will kind of sometimes interfere with your pigmentation. If you put too much translucent powder, you might have to build up a little bit more to get the pigmentation level that you're looking for. I've not really found that to be a big issue necessarily for me, but it can interfere with how vibrant a color is if you put too much powder. But I try to put just enough to take down, just to kind of set that in, and it just really does help. I would rather have an easier time blending and build up a shade than have too much eyeshadow go on or have more pigment and it be harder to blend. That's just the way I personally will operate when I do my makeup. So I'm going to take a neutral mid-tone light brown, somewhere in between, a very middle of the road, light chocolatey, kind of teddy bear brown. And I'm going to take that right here on a Sigma E25. And the reason I like the E25 is because it is pinched like this, and then when you turn it this way, it is wide. So you can get right up in there and place it where you want it placed, and then turn it to the side and blend. So we're going to take this E25 and I'm going to go right here into the socket and wiggle her in there. And we're working with a mid-tone brown. And we're keeping a light hand, making sure we tap the brush off so there's not too much product on the brush going in. Just touching the eyeshadow, not scrubbing around in it. Everything's going to be very delicate to the touch, very gentle. Holding the brush out here. We're not going to choke the brush. That's what, or choke the pencil. That's what my art teacher used to say to me. If you hold something way down here, he's like, quit choking it. Back here. Light hand, light touch. I think I harp on that from him when he was teaching us how to shade and value. But you see, it already adds a little bit of a nice bit of structure to the eye. And what I'm doing is just enhancing my natural socket line. I'm not trying to change my socket line. I'm enhancing the natural shadow that's already there in the bone structure and following the natural lift that I have. Ignoring the skin and the fleshy bits and truly just following the bone inside here. So like I push my brush in and I'm feeling where the bone is and I'm following that. Because as we age, you know, it's going to fall a little bit. We're going to get a little saggier, droopier, whatever. And you know, a little bit of a lifted eye is going to look great on everybody. This placement is like the most universal eyeshadow placement. Softly buff that out. And we can pick up a little bit more and get right in there into that socket line, which my socket line is a little bit above where the fold in my lid is, where the hooded skin is coming down. It's a little bit above that. So I'm pushing the brush there, not in the crease. And then I'm just buffing gently around those edges to blend it out as there's less pigment on the brush. And then I can lift my lid to make sure everything is looking smooth this way. My brush sideways. And then relax to make sure everything is looking visible and blended. Because sometimes when you relax your lid, things can disappear because it's going in to that fold. So you want to kind of make sure that that is still... And there we go. And this can be just perfect for day-to-day right here. Just that little bit of definition on the lid. And just kind of makes the eyes look a little more open, a little more awake. That's kind of the thing that I do want to tweak though, is I want to look a little more awake and perky than I do, because I want my outside to reflect my inside there. Because everybody always thinks I'm just drowsy and grumpy and tired all the time, and I'm not. It's just to make my eyes look. So I'm just going to do this on the other side as well. And right in where the brow bone comes in. And just following that. Following that natural socket curve of the bone. That's one of the, I think, useful things is to use your own anatomy. Don't fight your anatomy when you're creating a look. Work with it and yeah, embrace it. Get right up in there and then turn it sideways to buff out softly. And this is kind of a soft mid-tone brown. Just a really nice mocha mousse type of color. A little bit of a bronzer type of shade. And your mid-tone brown is going to be different for you depending on your skin tone, okay? Depending on your skin tone, your mid-tone is going to be deeper, if that makes sense. What's going to create some depth here for you and what you can use as a little bit of a blending out transition. And when in doubt, just use your bronzer or your contour, whatever it is that you're using to bring warmth and shadow to your face. Just a bronzer. You can just use that. When in doubt, use your bronzer and just build it up. Because 9 times out of 10, your bronzer is going to do the job. Alright, so I'm just going to build that up a little bit. But you see how easily that blended with pretty minimal effort, just because I put a little bit of that translucent powder in there. And that really is the trick to an easy blend. And I think that's something very useful when your lids are a little bit more mature. The skin is a little bit looser. You have some wrinkles and stuff that you're going to be working around. You don't want your eyeshadow to stick and get choppy because of the skin movement. So adding in that little bit of translucent powder just gives a nice glide to the lid and allows it to just flow over the texture and the wrinkles and the skin movement a lot easier. Because you see, I have some wrinkles and stuff going on and some loose skin, and it just allows this nice glide and it's not catching because it's not sticky right there. Now on the lid, this part, I don't care if that part's a little sticky, that'll be okay. But just mostly the crease in this transition area going towards the brow bone. That's where I really don't want anything getting choppy or sticking or looking unblended. I want that to be the smoothest it could possibly be. And to me, putting that little bit of translucent powder there is the trick. And if things aren't blending well for you, if you're getting a little bit of just like kind of some abruptness, you can take some more translucent powder and use that to blend things out as well. It's going to be your helper. Okay, or you can take a lighter shade and kind of go in between there, like something that's going to match your skin tone. You could also use. I'm going to go in with a deeper brown. This is going to be like a dark brown color. And we're going to take that on a smaller brush. And I like to either go with something like I like to use either something like, yeah, these 3 brushes for the outer corner. These 2 are kind of like really small domed brushes. This one's from Morphe. It is a M506, and it's just kind of a little bit of a dense domed brush that's very small. You can get right up in there and buff things. And then we have the Precision Firm Blender from Sigma. And then this one from Morphe is also really nice. It's the M124. It's just a flat little brush, and you can really get in there and kind of pat that color on where you need it on the lid, and then take something like one of these and diffuse it out if you wanted to. Another good option for just blending right there in these little small areas is the Morphe M562, because it is just a teeny tiny blending brush. You can really get right up in there and get that precision that you might need, especially if you have hooded or small eyes. I also recommend the Detail Diffuse Crease from Sigma for the same thing, just a little bit bigger. But they're very soft and floppy brushes. I mean, this is the Morphe M24, the little flat guy. And by flat, I mean it's flat this way. It's got a pinched ferrule. And then when you turn it, it's wide. It's just kind of thin, and it's not super duper dense. It's just kind of a nice middle ground brush. It's not the hardest brush to source in the world, but they're very useful brushes, and I really enjoy the Morphe one personally. I think it's just a good brush. We're gonna take that deeper brown, and how deep you want this brown is up to you. Again, make sure you really knock that brush off, and we're gonna start by patting it right out here on the outer corner. And what we do is angle it up towards the tail of my brow. And start by kind of patting first, and then I kind of flick and just kind of softly sketch my way in. I am barely touching my skin, by the way, very light hand. So I've noticed a lot of people struggle just because they go in a little bit too hard. That's all. That's the only mistake they're making, is they're just a little too rough. You gotta have a very delicate touch. You gotta be relaxed and kind of loosey-goosey here, okay? And just softly tickle that around those edges, very delicately. And at this point, you could take that little Morphe blending brush like this with nothing on it, and just softly diffuse those edges, and look at that. Seamless. You can also use the Firm Blender, the Precision Firm Blender, do the same thing. And if you don't want to have a ton of brushes, you can use that same blending brush and just delicately go around those edges. You don't need a million brushes either. I just like to show you options, but you don't need all the options, if that makes sense. All right, now I'm going to softly build that up a little bit more right out here. And if you want to keep things matte, you could stop right here, take a soft kind of skin tone, bone shade, or yeah, take a soft kind of whatever skin tone for you right here, just to kind of brighten that up a little bit. Something maybe a shade lighter than your skin tone, just on this blank spot, and you're good to go. You could definitely stop right there. I'm going to put a little bit of a shimmer there, just because I think that is classic and pretty. And one of those things you just kind of can't go wrong with is a little shimmer on the lid. All right, I'm going to do this on the other side real quick. Same thing, and then I'm going to come out from the outer corner, edge of the outer corner there, and going towards the tail of the brow. I'm just going to bring a little flick motion, and then softly diffusing that, bring it onto the outer bit of the lid. Pat on to get the most depth, and then diffuse the edges. Just using a little light sketching motion, little tiny flicks. Very, very lightly, barely touching. If you feel like that's looking unblended, you can go back to your original blending brush, take a little bit of your mid-tone, and come right here, just at that edge, and can help that have a nice flow and blend. I feel like it's looking a little too abrupt or something. There you go. And I like to keep most of the pigment out here. Even with my mid-tone, I want most of the pigmentation out here. And then let it softly diffuse as we come in. Everything's going to be diffusing as we come inward. I'm going to take the same little flat brush and I'm going to clean it off on a little towel. You can paper towel, whatever. Just clean it off. And then we're going to take a soft champagne shimmer. This one I'm using is very kind of just a warm champagne. Nothing special. And we're going to take that onto the lid. Not that it's nothing special, but you know, it's a very common shade. And we're just going to swoop that across this blank spot and let it just taper off as we get to that dark brown. Just like that. And how intense you go with your shimmer is up to you. You can build it up. You can apply it with a damp brush if you want to get even more pigmentation out of it. I personally just like to stop, you know, just something kind of a normal application. And what I'm going to do that's probably a little bit different than what some people would say to do is I'm going to take it up a little bit past the crease and continue to follow that socket and the roundness of my eye, not the fold of my lid. So that's coming up a little bit above that fold, and I think that can look really pretty. And it can give you a bit of a bigger eye look and a little bit more brighter and awake. If I just stuck to my lid, it would just kind of shrink my eyes. But coming up a little bit just really distracts from the fold and just makes my eyes look a little bit more open and large. You could throw on some mascara and be done right here. Just to show you, to round out the look, we can go back to the same brush to make sure our dark brown is blended nicely with our shimmer. We can take a little bit more of it. Just kind of blend right in there. And there you go. And you don't have to, this shade, this dark brown, doesn't have to be a matte either. Nothing has to be a matte. There's no real rules, okay? You could use a really deep kind of satin finish, soft shimmer. It would have the same effect. It's just going to catch the light a little bit, but it's going to be fine. And actually shimmers and pearl finishes and satins are a little bit easier to blend as well if you're struggling with blending. And always remember, practice makes perfect. All right, I'm just going to take my blending brush and just going to come around town. All right, now I'm going to take a black eyeliner. And this is where the real, to me, part of the lift comes in for me. Is I'm going to start at the apex of my lid, which is that tallest point of the curve, because I have very crescent curved eyes, curved lids, where they really go whoop. So I'm going to start at the tallest point, which is about the mid lid, and I'm going to take this pencil liner in black, and then just come straight out from there. And looking straight in the mirror. All right, see? And then we have a blank spot there. I'm going to come in from my outer corner, join up. And I'm not taking this super far out or anything. We're just doing just about there. And then we can fill in that little wedge with our pencil. You could do this with liquid liner as well. I prefer a pencil just because I like to get a little bit of a smokier effect. And what you can do is you could take that flat brush again that we used to lay down everything, or you could take an angled liner brush like this. I would recommend the angled liner brush just for more control. And I'm going to take that on that liner and just soften that up and make sure it is looking smooth and diffuse. And as we come in here, I am just going to let it taper in using this brush because it's a very fine brush. Pull out right there. And there we go. And that gives that little bit more of a lift and definition to the lash line. You can also take a black eyeshadow and just go straight in with the black eyeshadow, or you can take some of the black eyeshadow over top. Especially if you're prone to like transferring and stuff, having transfer issues. Smudging. A little bit of black eyeshadow over top is a nice way to lock that in. And just softly let that diffuse. I'm going to do this on the other side. And you could do this with brown liner, whatever color liner you want to do. And whatever, you know, like I said, the eyeshadow shades, whatever, that you could do this with any color story. Just a classic little placement. Okay. And looking like this, down just to make sure things look even. And then look straight ahead, make sure things look even. And this is one of those things that's going to take practice just with your wings. That's something that always takes practice. I have a video just on how I like to do wing liner. I'll link over here, and it's just specifically about that. We're done with the eyeshadow, so what I'm going to do is take a Q-tip. You could also put a little bit of your face cream on here. Eye cream, face primer, whatever. Gives a little bit of slip. And you can come right here and tidy up. And if you've already done your foundation and stuff, a little bit of concealer on a flat brush. I prefer to do eyes first before I get in there with, if I'm doing a look like this. Anything that's going to involve black eyeshadow, eyes first. But yeah, just softly swoop that along. Make sure you don't have any fallout. You see we had a little bit that you may not know is there until you wipe. But that's going to create a darkness under here, so you don't, make sure you don't have fallout, because it's just going to make a shadowy mess sometimes under there. And if you don't see it in the mirror initially, when you get in there with the makeup, it's like, oh, ooh, oopsie. You can tidy up your wing too at this point, if you like a sharper edge. If you don't want a sharp edge, you don't have to. Okay. I think we're good. Right. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and do my foundation and the rest of my face, all that, and we'll be back for lower lash line and the final look. I'll see you in just a minute. All right, makeup is on. I went ahead and did the foundation, blush, bronze, highlight, contour, lips, touched up brows. So just to go ahead and let you know what is on the face today, I have the Elf Soft Glam Satin Foundation, the Elf Camo Contour, a little combo, the Elf Flawless Brightening Pen, the NYX Perfect Stick, brows as the usual products. I think I use NYX Micro Brow Pencil today, and the Elf Brow Gel, and the Elf Halo Glow Pressed Powder. Tried that out today as well. Oh, and on the lips is, I was trying out Elf products today, okay? For another video. But on the lips is a little combo of the Elf Cream Glide Lip Liner and the Elf Glow Reviver in the Glimmer Finish in Crystal Balla. How pretty is that, y'all? Oof. I like that. That is a good formulation. So that's so far what I've done on the rest of the face. Oh, and blush is Natasha Denona. Back to the eyes. When I went in with my concealer, I was very careful not to disturb this and just kind of clean it up if needed. So my concealer brush is, I just use this end, and I just very carefully go along right there just to make sure I don't mess that up. But that brings you up to speed. Now, lower lash line. I'm going to take my NYX Vivid Rich in Quartz Queen, and I'm going to take that along this lower waterline. You see how it's kind of pink? My waterline gets a little pink sometimes and a little bit red looking for my eye drops. And just life in general. So I get a little bit red looking there. So I like to have a little bit of a brightening pencil. So I like to put a soft, kind of fleshy color. I know it sounds gross. Soft, fleshy color that matches my skin tone under in that lower waterline, just to kind of brighten things up. And it also makes my eyes look a little bit bigger and more awake. So it's multifunctional, but it's hiding that redness that is always bugging me. So there's that. Just a little bit along the waterline. This shade in particular is called Quartz Queen. And it's just a really nice kind of off-white, a little bit pink that matches me really well. A lot of times the fleshy waterline colors can be a little too yellow or a little too deep or a little too peach. They don't look like my waterline and they don't really brighten. This one isn't necessarily meant for that. This one I find to be really brightening. So if that's something you struggle with, check that out. And of course you could always just take your eyeliner, the black liner in the waterline if you want to. I do that too from time to time. Just depends on how dramatic I want the look to be. But I don't want to go super that kind of dramatic today. We're keeping it in the soft glam family. On the lower lash line, I'm not going to put any eyeliner. I'm just going to take that flat brush, and what we're going to do is apply to more so the tip and one side of it and use that on the lower lash line. So make sure it's clean. I'm going to take our mid-tone brown. Actually, I'm going to take our deepest brown and one side towards the tip. Just a dip. And with that side facing up, I'm going to come right here at the outer corner and just graze along, coming in and just joining that up. We do the same over here. And just being very careful. You could use a smaller brush for this too. You could use your angled brush like this or a small smudge brush. Now I'm going to take our mid-tone brown, same technique, clean the brush off, and just come right along under here, just gently, not much product on the brush, just kind of adding a little bit of shape under there. And then on the inner part, I'm going to put a little bit of the shimmer that we used, just right here. It just really brightens all that up and opens the eye up. And there you go. If you wanted to, you could add more whatever, amp anything up that you feel like needs amping up. I like to go back in with my mid-tone and my fluffy brush and just make sure everything's kind of blended right here really softly. You could also take your bronzer and do this part. Make sure my shimmer is shimmering. Angled brush, we can take a little bit of that black eyeshadow. Very cautiously. Really tap that off. Or whatever your deepest shade was. Just come right here. Really join that up. And clean off my little flat brush and just soften with nothing on it now. And what you can do, this is something I've learned from Emily Noel, is take a little bit of your translucent powder, and I'm going to take it on this little flat brush and come right under there. And just kind of, like she says, fences it in. It also makes it look really blended. And there you go. I think also Wayne Goss had showed that at one point too. I feel like he did, and maybe Lisa Eldridge also did. Okay. So at this point, if you want to take like a little bit of a soft sheen on the brow bone, which I think can look kind of chic, just go with your face highlighter, and I'm just going to go whoop, just a little glow right there. Just at the very peak of the brow. All right, and then on the inner corner, we can take an even lighter shade and really brighten that up. If you have one in your palette or your face highlight, Let's curl lashes now. I'm just gonna take my eyelash curler. And while my lashes are up and curled, I can see that fleshy bit under here. So what I'm gonna do is take my black liner, a longwear black liner, not just any black liner. And you can use your dark brown too. But I'm gonna use Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On because it wears really well. And I'm gonna take that right into that fleshy bit. It's called the tight line. And I know it's going to be very weird the first time we do that. First few times it's going to be super uncomfortable and awkward. But I got where I don't even feel it. Just don't look at where the pencil is. Kind of look the other way. If you don't mind the fleshy bit showing, then you don't have to do this step. That's a personal pet peeve. Or little ick for me is seeing that. I'm going to go in with the Telescopic Lift from L'Oreal for mascara today. And today I think is one of those days that would benefit from a very soft little lash. Like something like these little half lashes could be beautiful. Any kind of half lash, that's just an example. Individual lashes like this can be really, really soft and elegant and pretty for a look like this, or an effortless option, the Kiss Impress lashes that you just kind of stick on under your lash line. These are great and just easy to do. No glue needed. You just kind of pop them on and clamp them down. So I'm gonna let my lash mascara dry for a second, and I'm gonna put on just a couple of these on the outer corner. All right. And Impress lashes are super easy to do. It may take a little bit of practice the first time you apply them, but after that they kind of get to be where it's just second nature. You just pop it on, and it's so easy because they're self-adhesive. You just place it over there and squeeze. So I just did one cluster on the outer corner of each eye. I think that is plenty. These are the spiky ones, I believe. Oh no, voluminous. So I just used 2 voluminous mediums. And that did the job for me today. Because yeah, we don't want anything, we're not going crazy over the top here. I think that's just right. Okay. All right, and that is my back to basics, how to get a soft glam eye look. Very easy to do, easy to accomplish. You can do this with any color story under the sun, like literally any colors, and it will look amazing and beautiful. And this is just a very universal placement that I think works across the board for everybody. If you have a suggestion of kind of a back to basic eyeshadow placement that you're interested in seeing, just a truly how to do it, like a halo eye, lifted halo eye, anything, drop it down below. I do have a couple of back to basic type videos over here I will link. You let me know what you want to see down in the comment section. And yeah, everything I used on my face, even though we didn't talk about in the video, will be listed and linked below in case you're curious. But yeah, okay. I will see you guys in the next one. Stay safe. Bye now.